When I was a kid, about 6 years old, the church where my dad was pastor was in the middle of getting a new roof. They were turning a flat roof into a hip roof, and it was right at the moment when all of the shingles had been removed and the holes had been drilled for the new trusses when a monsoon-like rain came. Not a rain that was just a drizzle for an hour or two, but a days-long drenching rain. So you can imagine how this went. Not well. Within a matter of moments, water was pouring down the walls of the church. And I don't know how everyone found out. I assume someone got on the phone and just started calling. But within no time at all, it seemed like the entire church had descended upon the church in the middle of the week with whatever haphazard tools they might have had. Buckets and mops and brooms and dustpans and trash cans and rags. And we began pushing buckets and buckets of water from the upstairs down a stairwell, avoiding the hardwood floor just right there at the sanctuary, down another little short set of steps, out by the offices and through the front door. I was just 6 at the time, but my little efforts were allowed to be right in there with everyone else's. I was given a broom and did my part to push just on to the next person and the next and the next. Also, in the portion that was being poured down on was the church office, filled with all the financial records and the membership rosters and my dad's entire theological library. So the church began to just grab up sections of books and throw them into the backs of cars, only to be reassembled many weeks later without a single book or document missing. It was pretty amazing to see that the adult man, the senior adult woman, the teenager, the deacon, the longtime Sunday school teacher, the college student who'd only been in town for a few weeks, we all came together and we all worked for a collective good. It's a really defining moment for me, a moment when I knew that my faith community, my church, had a place for me. And not only did I belong, but I was invited to be a part of something bigger than myself. And we could be in it together. I realized I mattered, and they mattered to me. We live in a world where there's so much individualization and separation. Extended families live geographically separated from one another in many cases, and we have fences in our yards, and we park in garages where the doors go down. We may only have an interchange between our neighbors at the mailbox on occasion. Many people put on an outward facade of perfection and keep problems and struggles and needs within the confines of their private home. The community in which Jesus grew up was much likely less isolated and separated than we find today. It would have been much more intertwined and interconnected. Neighbors and families would have lived in close proximity without the luxury of cars to carry them dozens of miles between work and home. They would have walked everywhere, often together for safety and connection, and they would have likely shared times together in one another's homes, and parenting would have been shared across the generations in extended families, and the community would have worked together in the raising and nurturing of children. Here's the scripture from Luke 2 again. In verse 41, it said, "Now every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind, but his parents didn't know it. Assuming he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey and then started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him." So this collective community, the family and friends of which Jesus would have been a part for 12 years, had traveled together to the temple. Certainly Jesus would have known he had a place in this group, and this would have been an annual tradition that he probably looked forward to. He would have been old enough to hang out with his friends, the other teenagers in the group, probably horsing around, riding on John's back or sharing jokes, teasing one another or laughing. We can assume that the trip there went as planned as well as the festival, but it was when it was time to return home, when the celebration was over, when everyone was tired, overstimulated, and ready for some sense of normalcy again, that things went awry. So, what's your record for lost kids? I have taken a lot of kids, a lot of places over the last 20 years, and I pride myself in only once ever having lost a chaperone. She did later find us when the state patrol brought her to us from the state park bathroom. But we did lose my little brother once when he was about 3 at the grand opening of a public library. It was only after a frantic 20-minute search by my parents and my sister and I, the entire library staff, and a police barricade of the parking lot that we found him happily and safely hiding behind the door of a private office down a lone hallway. It can happen in a second. They're with you one moment and then not the next, under the clothes rack in the mall, 3 aisles away, checking out a toy at Target. But Jesus, he was an entire day's walk away from his parents before they even realized he was missing. And then it seems that it was a rather deliberate choice on Jesus' part. It says the boy Jesus stayed behind, but his parents did not know it. Oh, the panic and anxiety that must have set in, running at first and then walking back, now no longer in the safety and community of the group, minds racing, frustration building. Mary and Joseph have to turn back. There's no GPS, no Life 360, no cell phone. It could happen in a moment in our faith community too. One question, one declaration, one diagnosis, one rebellion too many, and it seemingly just becomes too hard, too great a risk, too much effort to keep helping them look for answers. So by choice or by necessity, we must enable our kids, our youth, our young adults to grow up, to question, to doubt, to wonder, to push back against boundaries, and still know they belong. It's so easy for all of us to stand and pledge our support to help parents raise and nurture their children when they stand up here with their tiny, cooperative babies. But how much difficult is it to maintain that commitment when those kids grow up and have their own opinions and dreams? The expression bigger kids, bigger problems didn't come from nowhere. Our community must remain as equally committed to those parents with the bigger kids and bigger problems as they did when they were little kids with little problems. So the scripture continues, after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been searching for you with great anxiety." 3 days, not 3 minutes, 3 days. Can you imagine? Parental anxiety is real, and often not without legitimate reason. Mary had every right to be anxious here, and today's parents do too. Kids are in the process of growing and individuating, making their own way in the world, growing up and trying out the lessons they've been taught for themselves, tiptoeing their way into independence and adulthood, but it demands a lot of parents in the process. To intentionally teach them about every concept before they need to apply it themselves, to model for them appropriate responses, relationships, self-regulation, to preemptively think of all the things they may one day need to know. Sure, there's practical skills like how to tie your shoes, choose healthy snacks, do your laundry, manage money, take ownership of your health care, change a tire or file your taxes. But harder still are the emotional demands, like helping our children learn to handle their feelings when they're sad or mad or scared, and navigating friendships or bullies or falling in love. And even harder are the ethical and moral choices that kids may decide they view differently than their parents. How are parents to be anything but filled with great anxiety? Parents worry about children because they worry that somehow They haven't done it all that they could to move them along toward maturity and success. And it's a near universal experience and feeling. We just don't know if we did all we could. But this story is a reminder. Parenting is a challenge for all parents. Even the parents of an actually perfect kid found themselves out of control and in need of comfort, oh comfort. And so we turn to the source of our great comfort, the one who loves our children even more than we do, the one who knows them and loves us even still. Parenting is a call to prayer, to consider the truth behind every anxiety of our hearts. What about the future? What about our child's future? What about the uncertain days ahead? Parents universally need the reassurance they are not alone in this challenge. Parents need help that's close at hand. Parents need open-hearted relationships with their children and God, meaning parents need to express to their kids their honest expectations and hopes and dreams while recognizing much of their own anxiety about their children is born in their own anxiety about themselves. Parents are anxious mostly because they are not at peace, and children do not generally bring peace to the picture at all. Quite the opposite. So where does one find peace in the chaos of parenting? Peace comes in the discovery that God is at work in our lives and in the lives of our children. We cannot protect, prevent, circumvent, or avoid every challenge, hardship, heartbreak, or difficulty our children will face, nor should that be our aim. We can introduce and teach and remind our children and ourselves of the source of our comfort and peace, the peace that helps us weather the storms and the challenges we face and holds us collectively through it all. Verse 49, it continues, Jesus said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Jesus made his own decision to stay behind and be in his Father's house as he was in the temple, the house of God. This moment was a moment when Jesus was marking his own rite of passage, a recognition of his own responsibility in regard to his spiritual matters. He tried to state it clearly for Mary and Joseph, to say now he was a man with a direct connection to his Father, but like most parents, Mary and Joseph didn't quite get it. They, like most parents, were still in the midst of exasperation over the worry and uncertainty and feelings of guilt about not knowing for sure where he'd been. It'd been a long road and 3 days to find him. And in the moment, in that I want to wring your neck and also hug and kiss you and hold you as close as I can because you were okay moment, they really couldn't say much. It says Jesus went with them back to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother treasured all these things in her heart. The King James Version uses the word pondered. She pondered these things in her heart. And the Greek suggests the meaning of carefully kept all these matters. I think that was Luke's way of telling us that it was Mary who was the source of this information about this event. It was a distressed mom who remembered the moment. It was a mom who also remembered what her son said and where he was and what he was doing when they found him. It was also a mother who recognized later that what Jesus had said was true. He must be in his Father's house. He was learning. He was asking questions. He was engaging with those who were amazed at his words. He was revealing his identity as the Son of God. Jesus was 12, marking the rite of passage, the beginning of adulthood as a Jewish young man, now officially old enough to be counted in the number needed to form a synagogue. So what happened in this 12th year of Jesus' life was a glimpse of the future that was coming. It was a fearful moment for his parents with a joyous reunion. Like children who find lost parents everywhere, it was a wonderful moment. And the child grew and became strong, being filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. Children will grow, and children learn. And children need to experience the truth for themselves that they are loved and seen favorably by God and by the people in the world around them. They need to hear the truth. You are loved. They need to witness the truth. You belong. And they need to experience the truth. You have much to offer and are an important part of this community. Honestly, we all need to hear, witness, and experience these same truths. You are loved. You belong. You have much to offer and are an important part of this community. Love teaches us that and lets us experience that and lets that knowledge of favor grow within us. The grace of God gives opportunities for parents and also for communities of faith to help children hear, receive, and accept these truths for themselves. We have a collective responsibility to raise our children in the knowledge and wisdom of God's favor and grace. Some years later, there would be another dramatic season coming in the life of Jesus. Agonizing, terrible hours, and 3 days of anxious, helpless despair, grief, and fear, before a joyful reunion. Mary remembered and shared that story too. Now, there will be times when storms come, sometimes with warning, but oftentimes out of nowhere. Storms for parents, for children, for people, and all communities of faith, literally and metaphorically. When the covering we thought was strong enough doesn't keep out the rain. And in those moments, for parents and for families, for followers of God and members of our community, the church, this church has the opportunity to come alongside anxious people, join together in the collective effort with whatever makeshift tools we may have in our supply, and pull together to support and nurture and raise up our children in their Father's house, the place where they are known, loved, and belong. May our faith community be a place where they can ask questions and learn and become. And even if they choose to leave for a time, may they have supported parents and a community of faith who will turn around and go back to search for them until they are found, welcomed home, and reminded of their importance within the greater community. May it be so.